Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Wednesday afternoon here on Cobalt Press. I'm your littlest red dot, I guess. That's what my name says anyways, and I'm your resident Cobalt Twitch producer. I'm so excited to be here with a ton of people today. It's not just me and one person. Oh, no. I have wrangled up some of the writers who have contributed to our new release of Grimoire III, which we're going to be talking about today, what their contributions are, and how they got writing for Cobalt Press. So, but before I introduce this incredibly talented group of people, I want to let you all know we've got some big announcements coming down the pipeline. We released a teaser yesterday on social media. Let the guessing begin as to what's coming up next for Kobold Press. But I can say that the book we're talking about today, Grimoire III, is available right now on the Kobold Press website. So get your grubby Kobold claws all over it. I'm going to drop y'all a link here in chat. Boom. There you go. Go check it out. All right, enough from me. I'll make more announcements at the end, but nobody wants to hear from me. I want to hear from all of you. So we're going to take a second. I'm going to let you go around, introduce yourself, and tell everybody maybe how you got started, where you got your start with Kobold Press, what got you from, I guess, there to here. And we're just going to go around the way my screen looks. So, Sarah, you're actually up first.
Hi, I am Sarah Madsen. I got my start with Kobold Press, and actually with game writing in general when one of my friends contacted me because her friend, Scott Gable, needed some writers for a project, and she knew that I was a writer and a gamer, though I hadn't done game writing yet. So I did some fluff writing for his Fairy Ring Along the Twisted Way project, and then he pinged me back to come back and do more writing for Kobold Press, and here I am.
Well, I'm glad you're here because you've contributed quite a lot, I think, since that point, to Cobalt Press. So, thanks for joining us today, Sarah. Jerry, I have not actually had the chance to officially meet you. I guess as official as the screen can get, but,
right.
Yeah, really nice to have you. Tell everybody, who you are and how you got started.
Likewise. I'm Jerry Lyniev. I got started writing for Kobold Press when it was still Kobold Quarterly, when it was like a physical magazine.
Yeah.
Back in the 4th edition days, I got back into D&D around 4th edition after, playing it when I was younger, and I started blogging, and I can't remember if I reached out to Wolfgang or if there was some mutual friend, maybe it was Schwalb or Townsend or somebody had put me in touch with Wolfgang, and I pitched some ideas. I was like, hey, what about cool stuff for Minotaurs? And so I had a little article in Kobold Quarterly for Minotaurs, and it's always been great working with Wolfgang and everybody. I've actually never had a bad writing experience with anybody from Kobold Press, so it's just been, a relationship back and forth for the past probably like 8 or 9 years. So
that's awesome. Can somebody clip that for marketing? Never had a bad experience working for Kobold Press. Nice.
Trademark.
Yeah.
Well, I could tell you about plenty of bad experiences, but we won't.
Maybe we'll get to talking to those because chat. Don't forget, we are going to take questions today. We always take questions at the end of Kobold Chats, as long as it's not a pre-recorded. And today we are live, so get your questions ready. This team is well knowledgeable on the Kobold Press front and the writing front in general. Ben, welcome back.
Hi. Oh, I'm next. Oh, we cut over. I was expecting the ring, but we're cutting over.
Oh no! I got to keep people on their toes.
Return.
Yeah. We're definitely. We're returning. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Outstanding. Hi, I'm Ben Mcfarlane. I was chipped out of the ice in like 2005, and I've been working on Cobalt stuff ever since Open Design. I even go further back. I was started as a playtester and a senior patron on the first Empire of the Ghouls project way back in 2005. I think Brian was actually on that project with me as a patron, and I have contributed to a lot of books ever since. It's a big stack, but yeah. So, but I'm happy I got to contribute to this one.
Nice.
This one this year. So yeah.
Very cool. I'm getting my first run through actually of Empire of the Ghouls. It's one of our only campaigns I've not put my grubby nose in and like read ahead because I'm not GMing it. So I don't know anything, and I'm actually having to play this one a little blindsided. So very cool.
There won't be ghouls.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. I tried not to read the front cover.
It may be underground on occasion. You may be underground.
Yeah, very nice.
What you did.
Awesome. Jeff, welcome to the show. I'm really excited you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Am I center square?
You
I had to
are
turn off-
center square.
Awesome.
I was hoping that we'd have two more, so we had the perfect Hollywood square layout, and we could just totally change our show for the day. But you still got center square.
Excellent. My origin story is going to be a little vague. I am pretty sure it was 2000, somewhere between 2012 and 2014, and I was talking to Wolfgang at PaizoCon when I first got slated to do some freelance work, and I started doing this series of cults that came out in PDF form, and then they turned around and said, hey, we're going to put all these into a book. Could you do a couple more? And we're going to bring Mike Wellham in, and he's going to do one. And then it turned into a Kickstarter, and there was promotion and all this weird stuff I'd never been exposed to before. I'm like, okay, sure, why not? And that's how the ball got rolling for me, at least for Kobold Press. And from there, I've been doing all sorts of things. This Warlock stuff. I've got some other adventures I've done, some beasties for various tomes and codexes, etc.
Nice.
That's about it.
That's it. That's all I've done. No big deal. Nice.
Yeah.
So glad to have you here, Brian. Also, welcome back to Kobold Chats.
Thank you. I'm Brian Suskind. Like Ben said, I date back to the open design days, so I think I joined that in it was 2005, and then I was a patron for many years, kind of off and on, and then I think my first thing I wrote was Dark Roads and Golden Hells back in mists of time.
I remember that one.
Dark Roads and Golden Hells, yeah.
And I've written for Cobalt ever since. I think a while back, Ben and I figured out that together we've designed several million square miles of Midgard. Like we've tried to figure out exactly how much that was.
It's a lot of real estate.
It was a lot of real estate.
It's a group effort though.
Yeah. So I've written everything from setting to monsters to adventures to things that Wolfgang didn't necessarily want to print, but we did anyway.
Nice. We love finding those things for Wolfgang. Mucks tend to be chat's go-to troll for Wolfgang. Anything monk related. But if you have other ways we control Wolfgang when he's on the channel, please let us know.
Oh, don't worry. That's the problem. That's the problem with people who've known Wolfgang long enough. You get a lot of ammunition built up.
Slowly but surely. Bless that man. For real though, y'all, Wolfgang's like an incredible human being, and we only pick on him because he's so nice. The world does not deserve him. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, he took a bunch of us in open design and made us into game designers, and we knew nothing.
God, now we have Wolfgang
Here's
to
all
blame.
of my knowledge.
Blame Wolfgang. Well, moving down, I guess, to the only person on the bottom row holding up our entire pillar here, Mike. Hi.
Hello. I just want to thank everybody for giving me all this extra room that I have down here.
Yeah,
stretch out and not hit anybody on either side. So that's real handy. So I'm Mike Shea. I write for the website Sly Flourish. I'm probably most well known for writing the book Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. And I got started with Kobold Press back in 2015 when I wrote for. I had to go. Thank you, by the way, everybody, for giving me the time to go look all this up. I'm like quickly, frantically going through Gmail. Like when did I first do that? And so it's 2015 with the Tome of Beast Lairs, the first Tome of Beast Lairs book, the book that came out kind of parallel to Tome of Beast that had a bunch of different little dungeon places you could use the beasts in that were in the Tome of Beast. And I did Eldritch Lairs, similar. I can't remember if that was for. I think that was for the Creature Codex.
No, that one's for Deep Magic.
Oh, was that for Deep Magic? Okay.
Yeah.
So that was really fun, and did a Warlock Lair called something MX Apogean, which was really fun.
That's cool.
And and I guess in this one, I'm from Warlock 24. I did a bunch of weird lists, so that's the one that's going to actually show up.
So you should know. One of my favorite things in the whole world are lists and tables.
Yeah.
As a forever GM, there's nothing better than list and tables. So do not never discredit a great list or table writer. I will always bow at their feet because I love them.
Right.
Okay, so actually, let's talk about Grimoire here, what it is, because what I learned at PAX this year is a lot of people actually don't know what our like Grimoire books are. Which I think is really interesting, because it is actually a collection of writing, right? That comes out of the Warlock series that we produce for our Patreon supporters. Now, the Patreon supporters get the little zines that get printed and sent out direct to them. But the Grimoire is basically a collection. So we select like number through number of Warlock series, and then they bind them all into one book. And so Grimoire 3, because we already have 2 of these, is number 20 through 28. So Mike, again, you're smack dab in the middle, number 24 of our 20 through 28. But each of you have contributed some piece to this collective Grimoire. So I want to actually talk about what everybody's like contributed. So we started with you, Mike. Let's go bottom up this time. We'll go backwards. Talk to me about these lists. You said they were what kind of lists?
So they're weird lists.
Lists.
I think I recall asking Wolfgang, I'm like, do you want to be more specific than that? And he's like, no. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, how about moons of the astral plane and stuff you find in an Atiug's belly? Right, both of which are
that's very cool list.
Yeah, there's 10. I think there's 9 lists in here.
Do we have that list available? I'd like to know at least one thing in that belly.
Yeah. So one of the fun bits was trying to make entire stories from one thing. And so, unfortunately, in another book, I had already done the essentially the lost sending stone. So, like, somebody lost their sending stone inside of an Atiug's belly, and it's still answering, so you have to go pick it up. But that was another one. In this one, we have, like, one of my favorites is the famous lucky coin from a gambler who supposedly won big and retired. Right? And he obviously didn't.
He wasn't so lucky. Yeah.
Eaten by an Atiug. And all of them, like, that's the punchline, right? Is like, eaten by an Atiug is at the end.
That's great.
This is a grim one. A pair of wedding rings from a couple who disappeared right after their marriage.
Womp womp.
Yeah, so those are fun ones. The other one was like that I really liked is grandmother's crawl space, right? Things that you would find in grandmother's crawl space. And one of the ones I liked was the portal to the bedchambers of the fairy prince. Right?
Grandma's got direct access.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Grandma had direct access to the fairy prince, or the scrapbook that goes back for 1,000 years.
Oh,
lots of fun. Lots of fun things.
So that's ridiculous things. That's awesome.
Right. Something that I tried to do with this is whenever I could fit an entire, you could build an entire story in your head with one sentence, in a random list. That was something I tried to put in here. So yeah,
such a good list too, because you could have any list. I mean, we could make a grocery list, right? But adding to story, everybody knows here on this channel, if you've ever tuned into Cobalt Chats, I am a story nerd, and I believe wholeheartedly in anything that helps drive story. So I'm all about a list that has a little extra on the back end to inspire at the table. That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're working backwards. So Brian, you're actually up. What was your contribution?
Mine for this collection was the Guide to the Plains, which if you're going to buy one grimoire or get one grimoire, this is the one to get, because if you have any questions about the plains, this is the one that's going to answer.
Oh, good to know. We've been talking a lot about the plains, especially since the last Kickstarter with the Book of Ebb and Tides. We did a lot of planar talk about Midgard here on the channel. It's
funny because this guide was a long-running nagging of mine to Wolfgang since, we went, as soon as we hit 5th edition, I was like, we really need to update Dark Roads and Golden Hells. And then I just nagged him for years, saying, hey, we really should really update this. Because Wolfgang was an old Planescape guy. And that was my first game I ever played was Planescape. And so that's, near and dear to my heart. Right. And so I kept saying, gotta do this. And he'd be like, yeah, maybe. And we finally did it for Warlock. And it's some great fun. It had my favorite of all time, the NPC I love the best, because I made a mimic swashbuckler. He's very smart and he's the ladies' man, but he's a chest with a hat. And they did art, which I was very excited for my. And I don't know if we probably don't have it. I can hold up the book, but
yeah, you can hold. I mean, you can hold up the book. Look, I even have the capability of zooming in on you.
Here, let's. The
gentleman mimic.
Oh, it is. Wait, I wonder if I can spotlight you. Hey, look at that.
Look at that.
Nice.
The tongue is a little lewd, isn't it?
I know. I was about to say,
Yeah,
is
it
it
is.
licking
That
itself?
giant tongue.
It was
Yeah.
definitely
he's holding
It's
he's holding a
flower.
rose.
Yeah, but it's still a little creepy.
It is creepy. And that was exactly the art brief too. That was the funniest part was like the art brief I sent was pretty much, he has a hat and his tongue is holding this rose and he's,
lewd mimic, please.
Oh, I didn't use the word lewd.
Romantic.
That was a
Romantic,
bonus
yes,
from the
yes.
artist.
That was the artistic. I love that. Very cool.
Romantic mimic. Oh, that's showing up somewhere, Jeff.
Oh yeah, everybody mark that. Go get this. Clearly, it's already worth your.
But the
your
guide
weight in
really
gold.
details, in brief, because we didn't have endless amount of room. I mean, I could write 200
Right.
pages on the planes, but it kind of details each little plane and kind of the highlights of it, and includes adventure breakdowns.
Oh.
Like by level for like 1 through 3. Here's an adventure involving this plane, and 4, 5, 6. Here's an adventure involving this plane.
That's very helpful.
And so it's like little mini adventure paths in case you wanted to design your own adventure based around the planes.
Nice. Okay, very cool. I know we get to talking about planes quite a lot. At least chat does. So and we had a big conversation actually with Empire of the Ghouls yesterday because we found some letters, right, and some things are finally coming together, and there was like some big planar conversations happening. So it's good to know that there's some support out there in this grimoire for anybody that might want to expand or run a campaign. Very cool. What about you, Jeff?
Well, to my recollection, I have 2 different offerings in this book. The first is a collection of weird fantasy items, just weird magic items for your campaign.
Okay.
If I were going to recommend one, I would go with the Nego Battle Husk. If you're familiar with the Nego, they're the spacefaring, Lovecraftian fungus things. And what they do is they take a large humanoid creature, preserve it, reinforce it, and animate it with fungus. Take out the insides and the bones and the head, and then if you're small or medium size, you jump in and wear it like power armor.
So cool.
You're welcome.
So cool.
Yeah, they're all like that. I don't want to take up too much time, but I think a few of these actually, if not all of them, made it into Vault of Magic as well.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you can another great, beautiful book right here on the shelf. You can get a copy of that too. Now available. I'm interested because who knows? Somebody might grab your grimoire and not Vault of Magic. What's one of your magic items?
Okay. There's also and this was me getting a little personal here. It's an item called Mergen's Lost Marbles. So if you're a fan of Ion Stones, Mergen was a powerful wizard, and he met his demise in the Western Wastes, fighting a cult that was trying to wake up one of the Dreadwalkers. And during the battle, his psyche was literally blasted out of his head. And the good guys won, but his mental template was basically blasted out of his head and crystallized into these marbles. So he has literally lost
his marbles.
Yes. And if you're an adventurer and you're out in the wastes, you can find them and put them in your own head and get a little shard of this mighty mage, and gain some of his abilities and sometimes some of his personality quirks as well.
I was about to say, what's the kickback here? I'm down for finding lost marbles if they give me power, but there's
they give you power, but you can also develop quirks. And if you're a fan of random tables, I have a random manifested quirk list in here.
Oh, a quirk table! I love that.
Yes. So you find one of the marbles, you plant it in your head, you get the benefit, but then you also have to roll on this table, and you might pick up some of the habits that this mighty mage had, and he's a little odd. It could be something as simple as green becomes your favorite color, or you become very fond of rabbits.
Oh, yes.
Or to collect them as pets.
What a quirk.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah. Or you may pick up the habit of smoking. However, you prefer a meerschaum loaded with an herbal mix, heavy on the sage.
I love this.
So Jeff, was one of them like the shopping, like, nope, shopping list, no, favorite toys.
Oh, no, they all do good stuff. But they range from like uncommon to very rare. Like you could they have one which will say grants you proficiency in a single skill, like Arcana or History, or something else that he knew a lot about. Or you get a Marble of Inspiration, which 3 times per day you can roll a d4 and add the result as a bonus to any intelligence, wisdom, or charisma check you make.
Nice.
Some of them can even give you magic. You pop it in your head and boom, suddenly you know a new spell.
Wow. Sounds like that's a very cool set of items to be looking for, too. Like, I love the idea that maybe the marbles are scattered.
Yeah, well, they are. Yeah.
And you just got to find them individually, one by one by one. That's so cool.
Exactly. You go out and collect them all. But the thing is, what happens if you get all of them? And you stick the entire psyche of this wizard in your head, then what happens?
Cataclysmic event, no doubt. Awesome. Yeah. That's super cool. I love that. So some magic items, some awesome tables to use.
Yes.
Very nice. Well, what about you, Ben? Oh yeah. No, please, by all means.
Well, the other one is the Mad Spring. I'll
okay.
Keep this one simple. The Mad Spring is what happens in the Western Wastes. There's a lot of magical storms that happen, and occasionally you get something called a spawning storm, which causes this massive rampant growth that turns the wasteland into this verdant green paradise, except that it's just as weird and scary as a paradise as it is as a wasteland. And the various things that happen, you get strange plants and different types of food that the dust goblins go off to harvest, monsters that come in because of the extra food sources and things like that. I also have a couple extra tables in here, in case you happen to say get caught in a spawning storm. That's usually not good. It causes all sorts of strange mutations.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. So, and that this came about because I wrote a Warlock lair called Raid on the Savage Oasis, where I brought in the idea of the Mad Spring. And then I asked Wolfgang, I said, can I expand on this? He says, yeah, sure. We'll do a Warlock issue. And it's like, hey. So,
hey, cool. Sounds to me like you've got a thing for the Red Wastes. You got a small thing for the Red Wastes?
Wasted West.
The Wasted West. Yeah.
The Wasted West. Look at that pose. I feel like there was like a hair flip happening mid freeze.
I developed it because they specifically. Okay.
Oh wait, no, you're back. We got you back now. Good.
Okay, good. Yeah, so they wanted me to do stuff on the Western Wastes. They were that was the focus of these warlocks. So I dove into the world book and devoured everything I could about it and decided, okay, where can I go with this? What sort of weird extra stuff can I add?
Stuff can you add? That's actually one of the areas I know probably the least about in terms of mid cards. That's very cool. I'll have to check that out.
I love the Western Waste.
Yeah, everybody that plays in the Western Waste says those exact words to me, which is like, I love the rest, and I was like, okay, well, I've not actually had a chance, so I'm gonna have to dive in. It's very cool. Very cool. Well, what about you, Ben? What you could contribute?
For this one, I worked with Prakash, also known as KP11 Studios. KP had started in working on this idea of a Raven folk like psychopomp or death cult. And so we worked together on the text, and I took this element of it and we kind of looked at, okay, how do we get Raven folks kind of scattered everywhere, but slightly different within Midgard?
Right.
And so, I collaborated a little bit with Brian, since he's a partner in crime with me on the first edition of Southlands, and we kind of dug in some ideas, and so this one has, how the Raven folk left the World Tree and kind of got brought down to Midgard, and then laid out a domain and some elements for Southlands and some elements for Midlands, some feats and whatnot. It was a good time. I want to say, we use it to lay some foundational work for hopefully future projects.
This is a little nudge.
Guerrilla game design.
Yeah, it's guerrilla game design, as we like to call it. It's lay those little seeds out there so that hopefully, if the other projects that we've seeded along the way become become a thing. I am not backtracking
Right.
and adjusting to what I may have had written before, but I've already laid the groundwork there.
Nice.
So that's a little something there.
Nice. Very cool. Much like Jeff just talked about, which was like did a thing, asked to do more of that thing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, cool. And I believe actually I managed to get my hands on that Ravenfolk Warlock at Gen Con. I mailed
Excellent.
KP one because we had a couple extra, I think, after we mailed out to Patreon.
Yeah.
Very cool. It was one of the only physical zine warlocks I've ever like put in my hands. I've only ever seen the digital copies. So I actually managed to read through that one, and it's a very cool build out, especially if you're going kind of a dark cultish route. There's a lot of really cool things you can do with the Ravenfolk with that.
Was that, or I should say that bloodline, that domain, it's a little grimdark in some ways, but it's tough to be a psychopomp, and not be a little grimdark,
Right?
like,
Yeah.
Unless
we could get Jeff to write us like a happy fun death cult.
hey,
Oh,
who's
happy
ready
fun-
to die?
I'd love that. A happy fun time death cult, please.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
maybe
They use their death
yes.
kazoos.
Yes, that's right. Woo-woo. Yeah.
You're dead.
So this was it's kind of cool. This is my third grimoire that I get to be in. So I've it's kind of a personal goal, trying to hit each one at least once.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. And you said that whole warlock is in the book?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
I think Sarah has the same. She's in the same one. Yeah, she had the really cool. I'll let her get to it.
Yeah.
She has a really cool contribution as well.
Okay, cool. Well, Jerry, you're up. What do we see of yours in this bound copy of Grimoire?
So mine was from Warlock 22. I got away from the Southlands for the first time in a while, and I did a new circle for Druids, Circle of the Wield.
Oh, nice.
And they're kind of like, I subverted some Druid tropes where instead of worshiping animals and protecting them, they kind of like sacrifice them and they harness their spirits in these stones and things like that. And the wild shape is you can shapeshift into any creature or a humanoid, but you have like bark skin. You get these big gnarly antlers.
Oh, cool.
And I also did some magic items too. I think they made it in. I'm not sure, but
wait, you've got your warlock in your hand. Show everybody that sweet
do.
zine action. Yeah.
Okay.
One of my favorite things about the warlocks, I'm going to be honest, is the cover art. The like old school black and white pen cover art is beautiful.
I'm very drawn to the black and white line art. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I tend to go down these like very not cult horror, but like folk horror type vibe is what I was going for.
Yeah.
During quarantine, I watched a lot of like The Ritual and Hereditary, and those are some of my favorite movies. So I was like, let's toss that in here. And the items, I don't know if you can see, there's like some skull totems in there and stuff, and I've got this pretty gnarly flail called the Flail of Tenebrous Screams.
Very cool.
And just they're kind of like magical but not high magic items. So we've got like a Wendigo tallow candle that the smoke drifts towards any neutral aligned creature or character.
That's really
just
cool.
Kind of folky, woodsy, creepy.
I'm always
stuff.
excited to see new build outs for druids. I always tell people druids tend to get the short end of the proverbial stick, I guess, a lot of the time as a fan of druids. And so I'm always interested in how the druids get bent a little bit, right? Because they are neutral and they're all about that like balance, but the idea that they kind of approach balance the opposite way. Through like
right.
death.
This was like death is part of life. Death is the next phase, and they kind of take that and embrace it. Yeah,
that's very cool, and there's a lot of folklore around a lot of those similar ideas. So that's really cool. Another reason for me to get my hands on this book. I guess I'm gonna have to go buy Grimoire 3, y'all. Darn. Sarah, before I let you talk about what you contributed, I have to say both of us are killing it with our lava lamp game.
I noticed that earlier.
Did you? Yeah, I was like, look at us with our cool lava lamps. Okay. Cool kids have lava lamps. No, but tell us what awesome thing you put in here, Sarah.
So I actually have 2 contributions. The first one was from the Ravenfolk Warlock, which was 28, which I have right here.
Nice. Yes.
I focused in that one a little bit on a lot bit on the rune magic of the Ravenfolk, because the World Book talks about how the Ravenfolk sort of have the secrets of the rune magic, and they can bend it and twist it more than, your average practitioner. So I did some magic for that, and I did a few where you can combine runes together and make complex runes, and then some where you can create rune staves. So you can combine the runes together and you can make increasingly complicated spells or effects and things that last, either short effects or things that kind of last longer, depending on how you want it to work and how long you want to take to do it. So and I also had a couple, it is pretty fun, and a couple of small relics, nothing super fancy, but a couple of Ravenfolk relics to go along with that. And then the other portion was from the Bearfolk.
Yes, our dear bear folks. Yes.
Yep.
I love that.
So
art.
for that one, I delved a little bit into the Bearfolk in Dornig. So there are some Bearfolk baronies, which is not typical. And then there's a few tribes in the Arbanès forest. And so I felt fleshed out, some NPCs and sort of the conflict between the tribes, and also, between the NPCs and the Shadow Realm and the Dark Fae and all that. So that one was a little bit more story, narrative driven, not as much crunch, whereas the Ravenfolk is definitely more crunchy magic, stuff. So
cool. Well, I'm glad. Always, like I said, people tend to be huge fans of the bear folk. So I desperately, I've been joking about it. I'm a bit of a Deadhead. I'm a bit of a Grateful Dead fan, and I've been wanting to run a Dancing Bears campaign for a long time. They're going to ride in a bus, the whole nine. Like, I want it to be this thing where everybody plays one of the 5 Dancing Bears. But anyways, that's a whole other campaign for a whole nother day. Speaking of city bears, well, I'm going to open us up a little bit now. Chat, now's a great time to start putting out questions. I'm gonna start with a question and just kind of open us up for some conversation, specifically about writing, because all of you clearly have a lot of background in writing, not just for Kobold Press, but a lot of other titles, a lot of maybe even different mediums other than just game design. So I'm always interested in both inspiration and process. Where do we draw inspiration from? Jerry, you said, I had this want to bring in this kind of folk aspect to something. How do you latch on to something and then bring that into fruition? What does that look like? And I'm going to, like I said, open up. I'm not going to call on y'all. You kind of just talk at your will.
I think that at least for me, I always have to consume to create. So if I'm just kind of existing in a vacuum, I don't really get inspired. I've got a lot of stuff going on in real life, but I have to consume media, and I consume a lot of media. I play a lot of video games. I watch a lot of shows, movies, bad movies, good movies, whatever. And then you got to kind of let it settle. I won't go straight from watching something to writing something, because then it's always too similar. It doesn't have enough of yourself in it. So I make sure to take time to consume things that I'm interested in and that inspire me, and kind of let those, proliferate throughout my brain, whatever. And then a couple days later, sit down and start writing my own take on whatever it is that I was inspired by. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I agree completely with Jerry that just steeping in media of all sorts, music, movies, comic books, TV shows, games, anything, right? And soaking in it. And, Jerry mentioned the ritual, and I think I have parts of the ritual in 3 different adventures that I've written for different groups, right? It's an outstanding movie no one's heard of.
It's also there's a lot of gamery media out there. We could all watch The Witcher and Lord of the Rings and all that other stuff, but it's really anything that you like. Don't just consume things that seem adjacent to D&D. Fun fact, everything I've ever published for somebody else, Kobold Press, Schwalbe, Wizards, has included a Lady Gaga Easter egg in it somewhere, because I love her, and everything that I write has at least one reference, whether it's an item description or a song lyric or something like that. It's always in there. And it's just fun, right? So yes, The Witcher's awesome, and I want to do all this dark fantasy stuff, but also, I need to sneak a Chromatica reference into something pretty soon.
That's
I
cool.
I think when I definitely agree with Mike and Jerry. And I think when I'm doing setting stuff specifically, I'll tend to look to history just because I'm by training a history nerd. And so, like when Ben and I were initially doing Southlands, it was, and a more recent project that we're not allowed to talk about yet. It's like we had stacks of reference books, of just history books that we would pour through. And it was amazing the stuff that you'd find that were real, that you'd go, well, if I had a little magic to that, that'd be a great item, or that would be a great, location or setting. And, it's combining the reality and the history with imagination.
Right.
That, especially for setting design works, that for me is the fun stuff.
Yeah, I scavenged through like archaeology magazine.
Really?
Yeah. I love, they have like a world roundup where they will just show like little discoveries all around. And so you'll get just like random things. Like one of my favorites is there's this island off the coast of Germany, like in the I think it's the Baltic Sea. There's this little island that for the longest time had this whole ghost story. Everybody's like, nobody should live there. Nobody should go to this island. It's awful. And they go and do some archaeology, and they discover that this island is the site of a massacre, and that there are piles of gold coins buried just under the surface. They found, and the thing that drew the Druid on there is that they found a huge onion in a stew pot. Like people were just cut down in door frames and everything. But
Wow.
Onions are not common in this part of the world, right? They came more from the Roman part of the world in like the fourth, I think it's like the 4th or 5th century, when this island had the massacre. And basically, like they found skeletons face down and cinders and everything else. So it was clear that everybody had not only just been killed, but left where they lay, and people just left the money on the island. And so this island built up this whole mystery of being this ghostly, cursed place. And they're, they started kind of digging deeper into it and discovering the story because they found this onion sitting in a pot that's not from the area. Huh. And I love, like, that. To me, there's like this huge story, right, all around this cursed island that, these people clearly like did work with the Romans or something else. They built some kind of cultural tie, and everybody else around them is like, no more working with the Romans. And this is the lesson we teach all of you.
I think that items being a way to tell a story is huge for anybody who's ever played like Dark Souls. That game is a vague mess of nothingness, but the item descriptions just lead you down these rabbit holes.
Oh yeah.
So, and items in general too. Like for me, when I design items, I like items that have trade-offs. Ben, this because you've developed all of my Tibberish stuff. I love items that are like, this scarab, it burrows under your skin and you lose Constitution, but it gives you this gnarly ability. But also you have nightmares. So like I like those trade-offs because it makes for interesting narrative developments where you're like, I could have this really powerful, really cool thing, but also I'm gonna pay for it. Like, is it even worth it?
Is it even worth that? Yeah.
But like the backstory to items in general, like the onion or anything like that, is just, they're perfect.
I was saying we did some items like that for ghouls. Like one that I remember was like the Rod of Sacrificial Blessing, so that you can, or sacrificial healing, like you could take damage to heal someone else. And yeah, I agree with you, Jerry. I love those items that have that inherent like cost to it.
Yeah, a consequence almost, because everything has a give and a take, a consequence. Okay, so Jerry, I love this little Easter egg. This is I did not write this question. This is an off the wall question, but you inspired me. Does anybody else put Easter eggs in their writing?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I have to hear. I don't care what we talk about the rest of today. I want to know everybody's Easter eggs. This is so cool.
Okay, I do weird things like this is not Kobold Press related, but I wrote a short story that was basically the Slender Man in Paizo's Galarian. And so I have 2 different Easter eggs in there where I used anagrams. I like using anagrams. I used anagrams of the screen name of the guy who originally came up with the concept of the Slender Man, and used it both as a place name and as a character name in the story. Just, a little tribute, I guess. But yeah, I throw little things. There's an evil NPC in Chapter 3, the Blood Wedding, Empire of the Ghouls, who is his name is an anagram of a movie character I could not get out of my head. I'm not going to say which one.
Ooh, this is cool. Okay.
It has nothing. It has nothing to do with the character whatsoever. They have nothing in common. I just could not get that particular character out of my head that day, so I had to sort of purge it, and that was my way of purging it. Was making taking his name, making an anagram out of it, and okay, that's this character's name now.
Right. Wow, that's cool. Anybody else have Easter eggy things or like hidden stuff? Because I love that. That's so cool.
I'll share one. So when I pitched Wolfgang on a monster called the Dreadwalker Excavator for Toma Beast 2, which made it into Toma Beast 2, it's actually directly lifted from my father's book Illuminatus, in which they have spider robots that are crawling over the eye of the pyramid. And I'm like, I'll turn that into a D&D monster and see if Wolfgang buys it. So,
That's awesome.
The Dreadwalker Excavator in Toma Beast 2 is directly lifted from Illuminatus. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. I've got a couple of Easter eggs. Most of mine are more drawing like references to more personal. So like
that's cool.
Oh gosh, I just forgot. One of them is like in my dungeon tables that I'm doing for the Kobold Press blog, where it's just a bunch of tables. One of them, there's a couple of the Trinkets and Treasures table where there are references to like Critical Role stuff.
Cool. Okay.
That you might find. One of the dungeon tables has quirks for townfolk NPCs, and one of them is that they only wear one sock and they claim it's more comfortable that way because my son at the time was constantly going around with just one sock on his foot.
Fantastic.
And when I asked him, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, it's comfortable. I like it. I'm like, well, all right. And I was
Okay.
literally working on like the table of quirks at like that moment. I'm like, well, that's
awesome.
to this thing. Or in my Wizards of the Coast adventure in Candlekeep Mysteries, the tavern in there, and their specialty is named after the tavern, from my personal game that I played in for like years. Like that was my first real, introduction to D&D. So little things like that.
That's cool.
they're
I
fun.
do a lot of I sometimes will make an NPC and then that NPC becomes an NPC in every campaign that I run forever. I have like one NPC. Actually, I managed to sneak him into my first Warlock lair. Nobody tell Wolfgang. I totally stuck him in. He's an NPC. He's there. I brought him into Midgard. It was like a huge goal I had. But very cool. Anybody else have other little Easter eggs thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's probably not going to come as a big surprise to people, but I usually try to put at least one mimic in everything I've done, mainly because I find them very funny. But in terms of adventure writing, for a while I was there's several Midgard or Cobalt products. I included the same NPC and he's usually a background guy. His name is Bertram Bodkin, and he's like this poor sap he was in Murder Fathoms Below, and then he was at Murder in the Crossroads. A lot of murder around him, but he's never really involved. He's just sort of there doing different things, and he's always sort of in the middle of it. And I just started picturing him as this hapless guy who, wherever he goes, this disaster follows. And actually, it's probably about time where he reappears again. And it was never, I always wondered if, like, is anyone ever going to notice the same loser guy each time? But it's fun.
Nice. Okay.
I have a couple. So there's a little one. Like there's an old adventure. One of the first anthologies we did was Tales of Zobek. It was a bunch of 3.5 adventures, and in it, the party like captures an exposition kobold, right? Who explains why the party is suddenly in the midst of a horrible thing. But the end of his tail is cut off, and so his name is Nick Tail.
Bless.
He's missing like the last third of his tail, right? So then later, like 3 projects later, we did Halls of the Mountain King. And in kind of an adventure cutscene where the party comes up and discovers, well, it's a spoiler, but I don't know. It's been a lot of years, so do I give away a spoiler or not?
Do it.
But All right, so they come in and there's a dragon who's been corrupted in Halls of the Mountain King, right? And as they see this dragon, like the Kobold, Nicktail is there, and so I murdered my own NPC, right? The dragon basically like hits him with a breath weapon of molten gold and turns him into a gold. Yeah, and then the other one I have is kind of big, but you may have heard of a race called Tusculi.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yes. So the Tusculi are inspired by jewel wasps, and every jewel wasp is born from a cockroach, right? They come and they give the cockroach a lobotomy, and then they like guide them into a little thing, and they implant their eggs, and they eat from their antennas, and they put them in these little rock tombs, and they close them in. And so by the same token, the Tusculi, every Tusculi is born essentially of a sentient creature, which is super creepy. Why when
That's
I look
so
at
metal.
Right?
This was a very dark discussion during the initial Southlands game design.
It really was.
Ben is explaining this to me, and I'm going, "You want to do what?"
Yeah.
Well, the whole idea is that these guys are supposed to be like this horrible, evil thing. When I look at the Southlands map now, I am like freaked out at the number of hives.
Yeah.
Right.
So we didn't have that many.
We had like one, and Wolfgang's like, no, more hives, more cowbell. Right.
Yeah, right.
I want
Ding,
more
ding.
hives.
Yeah.
Right. And so as you're sitting there, and I'm looking at all this as they do this, but the Tusculi name themselves the Tusculi's name is actually an anagram itself. It's eye locust, because they swarm across the country.
Right.
They basically feed across the country as they expand themselves, and they take somebody and they bite off their arms and their legs, and they put them in a pod until they, to breathe a horrible jelly until it's time to burst the egg out of their chest.
Man, the only anagrams I ever sneak in is my wife's name. I got to do better.
I did that.
Come on,
I
step
did
it up,
that, though.
Jerry.
I did do that though. In the Zobek Gazetteer, there's Lady Tagarum, which is my wife's name backwards, which is Margaret.
That's cool.
So she is the head of she's head of the guard, protecting, head of the gear forged guard there, and has her long braid. My wife has usually a hair in a long braid.
I asked my wife
such a
if she
bad
wanted me to do something like that, and she's like, "No."
Please.
My wife liked it. So
That's awesome. I feel like I'm going to have to step up my game. The only other Easter egg I have is I have a running joke that people call outhouses offices. Like, meet me in my office. But that's it. I feel like y'all have so many cool things. You're hiding people's names. You're using incredible bug knowledge to build entire races. I'm going to have to step my game up. All right, Chad.
I like
something. We should do something for Dot. Let's all, anything we write next, let's all try to work Dot in there somehow.
That's right.
Good luck. And periods don't count. It's also a running joke on this channel. The auto closed captioning does not recognize dot as a word. It only recognizes it as a period. So anytime I say my name, it just puts a period on this screen. So I am the symbol formerly known as everybody. Very fun.
I like to add song lyrics to the headers of each section of the adventure.
Oh, that's cool.
So, because the only person who ever sees that is the GM,
right?
So I feel like they should have a little bit of something fun as they're reading through the adventure. So I'll have like, you can check out anytime you like. Welcome
Nice.
to the jungle. And I try and put those in on the section headers on adventures. Occasionally, the editors will get mad at me and scoop them out.
That's very cool, though. I mean, I actually enjoy, because I just ran Courts of the Shadow Fae, and there's a lot of Shakespeare in Courts of the Shadow Fae for the GM, like at the top of the headers, which I think is really, really cool. That's actually, you know what? That is another Easter egg. I put a lot of Shakespeare stuff. I'm a bit of a Shakespeare nerd. Long before I came to Twitch, I did classical acting, and Shakespeare was my jam. And so another running NPC I have is known as William Shakespeare. He's the great bard William Shakespeare. But anyways, all right, chat. Questions from you. If they're coming, they better come now. If not, I'm just gonna keep. I got so many questions. One of which actually kind of came up in chat organically, which is when we're world building. So all of you have written kind of truncated things or additions to stuff, or like we talked about tables and items, but world building has been this topic of conversation actually since we got back from PAX, because we hosted a panel on world building with some really incredible people, and it's been a hot to trot topic. What do you think is the one thing that often gets overlooked by GMs when world building?
Whether their players care.
Yeah, right.
Definitely.
And then, and shortly after that, I would say continuity.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Elaborate.
The more you build, the more you build, and Kobold Press is almost a shining example of it. Because I mean, it started as Wolfgang's home game, and we was very small, and it was Zobek. But as we built it outward, you start having more moving parts, and and then you get more people playing in your playground, and eventually things start contradicting each other.
Yeah.
Which is eventually I convinced Wolfgang to put Ben, myself, and Richard Green on a continuity team because we were the oldest, and we remember most of this stuff, and so that we could then go, okay, this part doesn't work with this part.
Yep.
So we need to change. You need to change it.
He tries to get out of it. He tries to get out of it. There's a section in there where he's like, "Oh, there's an unreliable narrator. You can never be sure." Like he's trying to cover part of his bases on that. Like he does, and it worked for a long while. And then we got a few things where people were like, "Why is this with that? And how come they don't?" And we were like, maybe you should have a group.
Catfolk.
Oh my God, catfolk.
I think that one of the biggest things in world building is people love to explain everything, right? We have to have an explanation. I believe in the opposite. There needs to be mystery, and there needs to be things that aren't explained. Like, nobody needs to know about midichlorians to enjoy Star Wars. You don't need to see the alien a million times in Alien for you to be scared of it. Actually, the more you see it, the less scary it is. So I think when you take things and you just kind of like cast them in darkness, you write a couple sentences about it that seems interesting, people take that and they fill in the blanks in their mind, or they can take that bit and kind of make it their own. But I think a lot of people are really hung up on like, well, in the third war of the fourth age, King blah, and it's like nobody cares. Nobody cares.
That's only for you. Yeah, that's only for you.
We went 30 years without knowing what the Clone Wars were, and then we saw it. We're like, well, that kind of sucks.
Well, damn, yeah. Well, this actually
to this day, I have still avoided watting that movie.
Good for you. Good for you.
What's interesting, Jerry, is that Wolfgang, back in the open design days, the biggest lesson he hammered into us over and over again was, where's the adventure? And I think it applies to world building, because it's like, yeah, you could have the detailed history, but if it doesn't lead directly to adventures or story hooks,
that's great.
What's the point?
That's great.
Where are the powder kegs? Where are you putting the points?
Yeah.
So that and put them all over, right? Nobody says you have to blow
more hives, right?
Just put the bombs everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. You put the bombs everywhere so that they can break your setting, because it's meant to be broken.
Yeah.
That's why there's red barrels in video games everywhere.
Exactly.
So this was a great question that came through and kind of builds off what you were talking about, Jerry, as well as Brian and Ben. Lore, right? We get third age, fourth. What do you do to keep up with it? This question is, do you use something like a wiki to keep track of world building internally? How do you keep track of it?
Well, as a person who worked for Obsidian Portal for 5 years, let me tell you, there's some great tools out there online where you can keep a wiki of your game.
Nice.
I would suggest using one.
I mean, for us, it's. I mean, I mentioned this in the chat, but for us, it's the. I mean, it is the books. It's the world book. It's that's the advantage of having a published book. You can go, oh, it's here on this page. But even with that, you still need people like the continuity team to kind of go this moving part and this moving part. But I don't think we don't really use at least a Kobold Press internal manuscript or anything.
I've read too much.
I think it's important to understand the difference between your homebrew campaign for you and your 5 friends, and then the one that you're publishing to the world.
Right.
And things like continuity are really important when you're Wolfgang Bauer building an entire, and all of us, right?
You're writing a big old book like this one, yeah.
But when it's you and your 5 friends, who cares? No one's paying attention to your timeline, right?
Yeah, right. It's very hard as a publisher to go back and go, okay, we're going to retcon this.
Yeah, but at home you can retcon anything you want.
Yeah, that's true. They don't know the difference, right?
Right. It's really hard. I think sometimes it's really hard for DMs to recognize the difference between what you need to do for published stuff and what you need to do for your home game, which I think.
I mean, isn't that Marvel's whole business model though?
It's like
kind of thing.
Restart the universe.
Doing pretty well.
It's it doesn't matter. We'll just multiple universes.
Right. Add the words "what if" in the front of it, and you can do whatever you want. Yeah.
Actually, Renee, I can say there is an internal Kobold Slack channel or place where we do talk. Most of the keeping of lore is Dot going, hey y'all, where can I find more information on the Northlands? Hey y'all, where can I find more information? And then Brian and Ben and anybody that's there that's kind enough to be able to know where I can find it sends me to the right thing. But I do know we do have our writers in a Discord, like a private Discord as well. So I imagine there's a lot of lore talk behind closed doors there as well.
Somewhat. A lot of it is us also debating like, hey guys, I need a name for this thing. And then you occasionally get one good name and then a lot of really funny names.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
The Sploder.
The arachnosploder.
The scapegoat.
Yeah.
Oh, this is also something that I blame Kobold Press for this. I've fallen in love with cave goats. I think they are one of the greatest creatures that have ever existed in all of 5th edition ever. Why do goats need hooves? They don't. They need paws. And so I've become obsessed with goats, and now I put goats in everything too. So I may have to just steal that. Awesome. Well, we are running here at our 4 o'clock mark, and I want to open the table up for any last minute thoughts. All of you do a lot of writing, and a lot of our viewers are both writers themselves. We've had a couple people in chat even like, I use your products at my table. I have my own worlds. Any last minute thoughts to encourage people to keep writing, to help them along that journey? Because I imagine it's not an easy one.
Ooh, I'm sorry. I keep going first on all these, but
do it.
This is like the most. It's like the most cliche, like terrible advice, but like you just have to do it, right? You can sit around and be like, I'm gonna write later tonight. I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna get some writing done. Or you go, you know what? I got to get the right mood. Do I need to clean up my living room first?
Yeah.
Should I have a drink? You just need to sit down and just write a bunch of words, even if they're garbage. Just write them all. In the words of my dear friend Rob Schwalb, write drunk, edit sober. I highly recommend it. I mean, you don't have to get smashed. Loosen up a little bit. Whatever you can do. Let the words flow. Go back the next day and be like, oh, that's bad. That's great. Edit. Go from there. But you've really just got to force yourself to do it and not make a million micro excuses as to why you're going to write tomorrow or in a few hours or whatever. You've got to just do it.
Yeah, I'll pile on with like don't fetishize the process. Like don't have like your special notebook and your special pen that you have to have in the you can only write in this one little coffee shop on this corner, and I can't possibly do it otherwise. Just
I gotta get an Instagram photo of my journal with
yeah,
my
right.
pen
Like
first.
you know,
like,
right.
No,
Don't right. You know, don't. It shouldn't be more important to be a writer than to write. So
I agree.
Just
I'm a
write.
I'm a screenwriter when I'm not game designing, and so I work full time. But there's days where sometimes I took me a long time to be able to design, to be creative on command, and luckily that I've gotten to that point. But there were times before that where I would just sit and you just write stream of consciousness because you don't know what else to write, and it's crap. And you go like later you go back and go, ooh, I'm cutting those 3 pages because But the time spent, it's like going to the gym. It's like even if you're not liking it, it's helping you. And and don't. I think to pile on another piece of advice is don't be afraid. Don't feel like you have to keep your stuff secret. I talked to so many new writers who were like, well, I don't want to tell you my idea because you'll take it or something. And it's like, no one does that.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, no one, I mean, because, if Mike has an idea.
Surely your idea is one that's never been thought before.
Right. I've got, everyone's got plenty of ideas. They don't need to steal yours.
I got a whole list. I got a whole pile of projects that if I just had more time to work on, I'd work on. I do not need to steal anyone else's.
There's nobody like lurking around on Twitter like, ooh, whose words am I going to steal today?
These guys.
That's not happening.
And because even if they did, like an idea that I have and I write is going to be, that same idea of Mike wrote is going to be completely different. And it's that. So yeah. And by talking to other writers, writing is a collaborative process, even though it just seems like we're in a dark cave tagging, but it is collaborative. And like, since we started like the Discord writers channel for Kobold, we've come so many more ideas, I think. And it's having a group of writers that you can talk to about your stuff is invaluable.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And actually, for all of you, we do have there's a community-driven Midgard Discord, which is a great place to go to talk to other GMs, other players that are using our product, not just the Midgard stuff, but some of our tomes and things too, and how they're doing it, because you're all right. Like, right? Like, there's a collaborative process to this, and sometimes writing is just nice to have somebody to like bounce ideas off of or like ping ideas. So,
What do you do, Sarah?
Oh, me? Oh, gosh.
Yes, you.
My biggest thing is definitely like I agree with the you need to just do it. And I find if we're talking like techniques and methods, like I use the Pomodoro method a lot to get myself to like actually do work because it's easy to sit down and be like, I'm going to just write for 20 minutes, just 20 minutes, like no distractions. Pomodoro method is it's named after the little like tomato timers that you find in kitchens sometimes.
Okay. Yeah.
It's basically you do like 20 minutes of writing and then a 5-minute break. And then 20 minutes of writing and then a 5-minute break. And you set a timer. And when it's writing time, you don't check Twitter, you don't get a drink, you don't take your dog for a walk, like you're writing. And it's really easy to just do 20 minutes, right? Because it's a short time. It's not very long. It's not like you're writing for an hour because that's a lot more of a commitment. And so it helps bring my focus in. And then I have 5 minutes to, mess around on social media. And then usually when my 20 minutes is up, I'm still in the middle of something that I want to get back to as soon as my 5-minute break is over. So I find that to be when I remember to do it, it's really helpful.
Yeah, Sarah,
for focus.
I wrote all of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master doing that.
Yep.
That technique works really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That's a great, like really practical option. And there was another great question in chat we'll wrap up with, which is, how do you get better, like, as a GM, other than just actively doing it? Cobalt Press has a series of really great guides, a ton of them. One on world building. I believe there's a GM guide. There's, like, a guide to monsters and magic and combat, but there is a Kobold guide to game mastering. It is on our website. You can go look it up. And it has basically, I call all of our guides basically panels in a book. They're, like, sitting at a convention with top line writers, creators in the industry, and they've each written short essays or given great tips on specific topics. And the Kobold Guide to Game Mastering, I think, is just a really cherished book that if you are looking to expand your game mastering skills is like an absolute must-have. And Mike just mentioned one of his books, which is also, in my opinion, a must-have, another great GMing guide. So you can go check those out now, to expand. Sometimes just hearing other people's thoughts and opinions is a great way. Great. Well, gang, we are at time, which makes me sad because I love just hearing about all of your processes and the back end side of things and what it looks like to like be the creative front of a company like this. But I want to thank you all, Sarah, Jerry, Ben, Jeff, Brian, and Mike. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for giving your creative talents to Kobold Press so we can have amazing things like Warlocks and Grimoire III. If anybody is interested in more of what each of these folks have contributed to Kobold Press, go to our website and search their name because the products that they have been involved with will come up by name as well as by title. So that's very, very helpful as well. All right, y'all. I guess we're going to ping off. Make sure that you join us again next week. We have a big announcement coming next week. Speaking of Wolfgang Bauer, he will be here, in the digital flesh, to spill all of the proverbial beans about what our next big Kickstarter is. So definitely don't want to miss that. And we'll be back on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific for the continuation of Empire of the Ghouls. We just finished the first chapter. And there's a lot of questions and confusion amongst our party. So definitely something you don't want to miss. And 2 more shows will be coming to Kobold Press. One this month, one starting next month. We can welcome a brand new mini painting show called Happy Little Kobolds, where we're going to bring on really fantastic mini painters to desperately attempt to teach me how to mini paint. We're going to be starting with our Swobold Mini, and this is a sponsored show by Effin' Cool Minis, who is turning our beasts into miniatures for your table, which is very, very cool. So come check out some really incredible mini painters and come laugh at me attempting to be a really cool mini painter. And if that's not enough for you and you need more beasts in your life, we're starting a once-a-month show in partnership with our friends over at Band of Badgers. They're in the UK for all you UK folk. And they're going to be starting a beast bounty show. It's called Beast Bounties, and they're going to be bounty hunting a beast once a month with their crew and their team. And this is going to be very cool because it's an actual live map mini show. None of this digital VTT stuff. We're going back down to tables, so you can come check that out and see what they're going to do with that. I think it's going to be a really neat show. The monster or the beast is actually being played by a player. So you got 3 players
cool.
hunting it and 1 player playing the monster. So it should be a very, very interesting kind of strange PvP action show. So I'm very, very excited about that. Other than that, we will see you back here next week. Same Kobold time, same Kobold channel. And make sure you get your hands on the current Grimoire 3, available now at the Kobold Press store. Thank you, everybody, for your time, your talents, and your joys. We will see you all next week. Bye, everybody.
Hey.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, friends.